They had 30 days to sell the penthouse, or expose everything behind it. The elevator doors opened onto the 57th floor, revealing a penthouse that seemed to float above the city, its floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the late afternoon sun in fractured patterns. Maya stepped inside first, her heels clicking deliberately on the marble floor, a sound that echoed like a challenge. Floyd followed more quietly, carrying a slim leather folder filled with inspection notes, his expression unreadable, but his eyes sharp, like a predator observing territory. The owner, a man in his late 50s with thin silver hair and a perpetually tense expression, greeted them both. He was the kind of tech magnate whose paranoia had been sculpted by decades of hackers, corporate spies, and lawsuits. "You have 30 days, he said, his voice crisp. 30 days to convince me that my penthouse should be sold through you." He didn't smile. He didn't shake hands. He simply gestured for them to follow him inside. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline that came when she was competing, when stakes were high and the outcome uncertain. She had prepared for this. Social media campaigns, aggressive digital marketing strategies, viral teaser videos, the works. Every angle was calculated to maximize exposure, to make the penthouse the most talked-about property in the city before any buyer even stepped inside. She glanced at Floyd, who, as usual, carried an air of quiet confidence. His approach was the opposite of hers, low-key, subtle, exclusive. Private showings, closed clubs, word of mouth among the elite. No flash, no fanfare. They moved through the penthouse, floor by floor, room by room. The apartment was immaculate, deliberately staged to convey wealth and taste, but Maya noticed a few details that she mentally cataloged for her campaign. The sunlight hitting the textured walls at certain angles, the way the shadows danced across the minimalist furniture. Floyd, on the other hand, was scanning every corner, every vent, every crevice. It was in the smallest detail that he excelled. "Look here," he murmured, pointing toward a corner near the master suite. Maya followed, arching an eyebrow. A faint discoloration along the wall caught her attention. "Mold," Floyd said softly, almost to himself. "Hidden. Could be from a leak behind the insulation. Not severe yet, but it will be if it's ignored." Maya's heart skipped, not from fear, but from irritation. She had planned to overlook minor flaws, focus only on the spectacle. "It's negligible," she countered. "Buyers won't see it if we stage properly." Floyd shook his head. "If the buyer's lawyer finds it, you'll be responsible. It's not about perception. It's about legality and ethics." His tone wasn't confrontational, just factual. And in that moment, Maya realized that this partnership was going to be more complicated than she had imagined. They moved on, working side by side despite the tension. Maya envisioned the campaign already. She could see billboards and social media posts, the buzz growing daily, but Floyd was thinking about contracts, disclosures, liabilities. By the time they finished their inspection, a silent understanding had begun to form. They were competitors, yes, but they needed each other to navigate this deal. Later that night, after the initial walkthrough, they found themselves back in the penthouse. The movers had been delayed. The delivery of rented artworks from the museum had arrived late, and the staging still wasn't complete. Maya rolled up her sleeves. "We don't have time to wait. Let's move these ourselves." Floyd sighed but nodded. Together, they lifted sofas, rearranged tables, and hung canvases under the dim light of portable lamps. There was no room for ego here, just two people working against time. Maya struggled with a tall sculpture, nearly losing her balance, and Floyd caught it, steadying both her and the piece. Their first real conversation happened in that chaotic, sweaty environment, and it was stripped of pretense. "You always do this yourself?" she asked, panting. "Depends," he replied evenly. "Sometimes it's easier than yelling at movers." He offered a small smirk, the first trace of levity between them. Maya laughed, brief and sharp. "I'll remember that next time." They continued into the night, moving furniture silently except for the occasional grunt or clatter. Each action, each decision, was measured. Maya's audacity complemented Floyd's caution. She pushed forward, imagining the sale. He pulled back, grounding them in reality. By the time they finally paused, sweat on their brows and bruises forming on their hands, the penthouse looked transformed, elegant, enticing, flawless, ready for the next day. But as Maya surveyed their work, her mind was already racing ahead. Tomorrow, the first potential buyer would arrive, a high-level investment officer for a prominent Middle Eastern family. Maya knew her instinct would be to push the sale quickly, to light the fire under the deal. Floyd, of course, would insist on digging deeper, verifying every financial statement, every bank transfer. And so the real battle began, not just for the penthouse, but between ambition and caution, risk and ethics, flash and substance. 30 days, one listing, and a partnership that neither of them had asked for, but both would soon learn they couldn't do without. The next morning, the penthouse was alive with tension. Sunlight spilled through the windows, painting the hardwood floors in gold, but the atmosphere felt charged, almost electric. Maya had been up before dawn, coordinating with her social media team and confirming the last details of the virtual tour. Floyd arrived shortly after, carrying a folder of legal checks and financial summaries, his presence calm but deliberately imposing. The doorbell chimed. Maya straightened her blazer, masking a flicker of irritation. She opened the door to reveal the client, a lead investment officer for a prominent Middle Eastern family, dressed in a bespoke charcoal suit that signaled absolute authority. His entourage spilled into the space behind him, their sneakers squeaking against the polished floors. "Welcome," Maya said, her voice smooth and practiced. "We're thrilled you're considering the penthouse." The representative nodded curtly, his eyes scanning the space with clinical precision. Floyd quietly began reviewing his notes, already noting irregularities, a sudden surge of transfers, accounts registered in foreign shells, inconsistent tax documentation. Maya ignored him, stepping ahead. "Let me show you the main suite," she said, leading the way. "We've just staged it last night. Every piece chosen to maximize impact." The representative remained impassive, his gaze lingering on the marble countertop. "The proportions are acceptable," he stated flatly. "The sheikh will appreciate the privacy of this elevation." His eyes lingered on the art, the furniture, the panoramic view of the city. But Floyd's attention remained on the documents. "Sir," he began, stepping closer, "I need to confirm that all funds are properly sourced. It's standard compliance procedure, proof of legitimate income, KYC checks." Maya shot him a warning glance. "Floyd, maybe we can just, focus on the experience. Don't stress the paperwork. He's serious, he has money. Let's not scare him off." Floyd's jaw tightened. "Maya, this isn't about scaring him off. It's about liability. If we ignore irregularities, the firm could be held accountable. You think a flashy client makes him exempt from law?" Maya's face flushed, the familiar heat of ambition and pressure mixing with frustration. "I'm telling you, the sale is burning. If we lose momentum, it's gone. 30 days is nothing. You think he's the only buyer? There's always another, but I want this one." Floyd studied her, silent for a long moment. The room hummed with unspoken tension, the representative oblivious to the storm. Then Floyd exhaled sharply, leaning closer to Maya. "If we do this without proper checks, you're the one who risks it all. Not me. You want to gamble, go ahead, but not on my watch." The first argument had escalated into a collision of principles. Maya's eyes darted toward the massive windows, the city sprawling below like a reminder of everything at stake. She clenched her fists, considering how much she was willing to compromise. Meanwhile, the representative moved through the rooms, inspecting the finishes. One of his advisors leaned in too close to the sculpture Maya had nearly dropped the night before, his shoulder almost brushing it. Floyd rushed over, steadying it again without a word. Floyd rushed over, steadying it again without a word, his calm presence a stark contrast to the advisor's careless energy. Maya noticed the subtle dynamic. Floyd acted decisively to protect the property, the client, and the firm, while she focused on selling the dream. By the end of the tour, the representative was satisfied, nodding curtly, his advisors whispering behind him. Maya felt the familiar thrill of victory, but Floyd's expression was unreadable, almost somber. He had flagged multiple red alerts in the client's finances that could not be ignored. After the client left, Maya exhaled sharply. "We're good, right?" He loved it. Floyd placed his folder on the kitchen island, opening it. "He might love it, yes. But legally, this is a minefield. If we proceed without verification, we expose ourselves. You saw the irregularities, foreign accounts, sudden transfers, shell entities. If regulators catch wind, he let the sentence hang. Maya's stomach sank slightly. She hated losing momentum, hated the thought of slowing down. But she also understood the truth in his words. She clenched her jaw, masking her worry. Okay, she said finally. We verify everything. But we don't scare him off. Find a way to do it quietly. I can't afford a missed opportunity. Floyd nodded, reluctantly conceding to compromise. Quietly, he repeated, but thoroughly. They spent the rest of the morning drafting emails, contacting banks, and quietly digging into the client's financial footprint. Maya's mind raced with promotional ideas, social media posts, and ways to make the penthouse irresistible. Floyd focused on legality, flagging transactions, comparing documents, noting potential pitfalls. Side by side, they worked, Maya pushing forward, Floyd restraining the impulse to rush, an uneasy partnership forming under pressure. The first real test had been delivered. Maya realized that her usual methods would not suffice, not with Floyd involved, not with Vicky looming in the background, and not with a client this volatile. The sale was no longer just about marketing or charm. It had become a tightrope walk between ambition and ethics, risk and survival. And somewhere in the background, Maya felt the subtle, creeping awareness that this client was just the beginning, and that the real storm was yet to arrive. The office of Vicky's firm was a glass and chrome fortress, sleek and impersonal, but every corner screamed control. Maya entered first, heels clicking with the practiced precision of someone used to announcing their presence before speaking. Floyd followed, carrying a slim briefcase that looked far too small to contain the storm that was coming. Vicky sat behind her oversized mahogany desk, a phone pressed to her ear. Her gaze lifted as they entered, icy and calculating. Maya, she said, her voice smooth as polished steel. I hear you've been thorough with our latest client. Maya smiled, tight-lipped. Of course. Due diligence is standard, Vicky. We want to make sure everything is legitimate. Vicky interrupted, setting down her phone with deliberate force. Don't play naive. That Sheikah's funds are fine. You could have closed the deal already, but you've spent time digging into transactions no one asked you to check. She leaned forward, steepling her fingers. I don't care about minor irregularities. I care about results. Now, Floyd, standing slightly behind Maya, felt his jaw tighten. He knew Vicky's reputation, manipulative, relentless, always hunting the weak link to exploit. He also knew she would expect Maya to bend, to fudge a report, to present the client as clean, no matter what the records said. Maya felt the heat rise to her cheeks, but forced herself to remain composed. We can't just ignore the red flags. There are compliance laws, KYC regulations. Vicky's laugh cut through the air, sharp and mocking. Laws? Compliance? Do you know how many clients I've closed with loose papers and tighter lips? You want to get fired or investigated. That's what happens when you get in the way of profit. She stood suddenly, pacing slowly behind her desk. I'm giving you a choice, Maya. You submit a clean report. You ensure the sale goes through. Or, you watch this deal collapse, and I make sure your history. Capiche? Maya's stomach churned. The thrill of ambition battled the warning bells in her mind. Every instinct screamed to protect the sale, to maintain momentum, to show that she was untouchable. But every ethical instinct, every shred of professional integrity, screamed back. Floyd's hand twitched near his briefcase, his eyes meeting Maya's. No words were exchanged, but a silent communication passed between them. He would not compromise the law. He would not bend for Vicky. And if Maya chose differently, they were on separate paths. Maya swallowed, her mind racing. She knew Vicky's methods, knew the threats were real. One falsified report could make her a criminal. But defying Vicky could mean the loss of her career, her reputation, everything she had fought for. The penthouse loomed in her thoughts, not just as a property, but as a symbol of the trap she had stepped into. Understood, she said finally, her voice even, hiding the tremor in her chest. We'll proceed with the necessary checks. But we won't compromise compliance. Vicky froze for a fraction of a second, her eyes narrowing like a predator sizing up prey. Then she smiled, a slow, calculated curve of lips that made Maya's blood run cold. Very well, Vicky said. But remember this, I don't forgive delays. I don't forgive failures. If this client walks out, or worse, finds a reason to question our integrity, The consequences will fall squarely on you. The words hung in the air like smoke from a lit fuse. Maya nodded, suppressing the urge to bolt from the office. Floyd stepped forward, finally speaking, his tone calm but firm. We understand. We'll handle it professionally. No shortcuts, no compromises. Vicky's eyes flicked to him, a hint of recognition and annoyance. Floyd had already made himself a potential obstacle. She gave a single, sharp nod. Good. Keep me informed. I expect results within 48 hours. The ride back to the penthouse was quiet. Maya stared out of the tinted windows of the car, the city a blur beneath them. Floyd watched her in the rearview mirror, noting the tension coiled in her shoulders. Finally, Maya spoke. She's ruthless. I mean, I knew that, but she's dangerous, Floyd said, completing her thought. And you just volunteered to fight her on her own turf. Maya exhaled slowly. I can't let her win. Not this time. But I also can't make a mistake that ruins everything. Floyd's eyes softened ever so slightly. Then we do it the right way. Step by step. No shortcuts. You've got the skill and the instinct. I've got the method. Together, maybe we can survive this. For the first time, Maya felt a flicker of genuine relief. Not because the problem had been solved, but because she realized she wasn't alone in the storm Vicky had unleashed. They were forced allies now, bound by necessity and circumstance, and the penthouse was only the beginning. As the skyline of the city blurred past, the weight of the next 48 hours pressed down on them. Compliance checks, legal scrutiny, financial investigations, all invisible, relentless forces. And somewhere in the background, Maya knew Vicky was already plotting her next move, one step ahead, always calculating, always waiting for her to falter. The battle was no longer just about a penthouse. It was about survival, reputation, and who would come out on top when the rules were ignored or broken. The city was already a patchwork of gold and gray when Maya and Floyd boarded the sleek black SUV for the trip to the client's private yacht. 15 hours of contracts, clauses, and concessions lay ahead, a marathon that would test patience, skill, and endurance. Maya settled into the leather seat, mind racing with marketing strategies, sales angles, and subtle ways to sway the client's perception. Floyd, notebook in hand, was already sketching out terms, clauses, and contingencies, every number exact, every word precise. The ride itself became a moving war room. Maya flipped through virtual tours on her tablet, rehearsing pitches and visualizations for the property. Floyd corrected figures, recalculated tax implications, and noted potential risks, occasionally interrupting her explanations with questions about compliance or legal exposure. If the client's trust fund is tied up in offshore accounts, we need to disclose that properly, he said, his tone calm but unyielding. Maya sighed. Floyd, I know, but if we bring this up now, we risk him walking before we even sit down. Let me handle the presentation, you handle the numbers. Floyd studied her, silent for a beat. Then he nodded. Fine, but I'll step in if something seems off. I'm not negotiating with blinders on. The yacht waited at a private dock, gleaming under the morning sun like a jewel. The client, flanked by advisors and security, welcomed them aboard with a wide grin and an air of entitlement. Maya extended a hand, charm dialed to maximum, while Floyd kept his distance, observing the group with quiet scrutiny. Negotiations began in earnest. Maya opened with a visual presentation of the penthouse, highlighting the staged furniture, curated artworks, and the sweeping city views. She painted a narrative, a lifestyle, a dream, a world waiting to be lived above the clouds. The client nodded, impressed, but the glint in his eyes revealed impatience and underlying skepticism. Floyd interjected smoothly, his voice even but commanding. Let's review the terms of the sale, he said, unfolding his documents. He guided the discussion through contingencies, deposits, verification clauses, and contractual obligations. Where the client attempted to press for loopholes or favorable terms, Floyd countered deftly, neutralizing pressure without confrontation. Each concession was carefully balanced, every compromise calculated to maximize value for the seller while minimizing risk for the firm. Maya watched him closely. She had expected a cautious, stiff negotiator. Instead, she saw a master at work, a man capable of reading the client, predicting moves, and bending outcomes without anyone noticing the manipulation. For the first time, Maya felt genuine admiration. Hours passed. Clauses were rewritten, signatures drafted, emails sent and returned. Maya was exhausted, her fingers stiff from swiping on tablets and taking notes. Floyd, seemingly tireless, remained focused, his calm precision a counterpoint to her frenetic energy. Yet, when she made a strategic suggestion that enhanced the client's perception, Floyd acknowledged it, crediting her in subtle phrases to the advisors. Small gestures, almost invisible, but meaningful. Respect was forming, not the loud, verbal kind, but a quiet recognition of each other's strengths. By the end of the marathon, concessions had been made, terms clarified, and the client leaned back, finally nodding in approval. Maya allowed herself a brief smile, feeling the thrill of victory, but it was tempered by fatigue and the awareness that this was only the beginning. As they disembarked from the yacht and returned to the city under the fading light, Maya glanced at Floyd. "You were incredible," she admitted, the words rare and unguarded. Floyd offered a half-smile. "You weren't bad yourself. You sold the dream, I secured the reality. Not bad for a day's work." For the first time, they truly operated as a unit. Ambition and caution, risk and strategy, vision and precision, each complementing the other. The penthouse was no longer just a property. It had become a proving ground, a crucible forging a partnership neither had asked for, but both had begun to rely upon. And in the shadows of their success, a single thought lingered. Vicky would not allow this victory to go unchallenged. The storm was approaching, and the penthouse was merely the first battlefield. The penthouse had transformed overnight. What was once a quiet, meticulously staged apartment now thrummed with life. Soft lighting, the subtle hum of a curated playlist, and the delicate clinking of glasses. Guests arrived in a steady stream, each more polished and influential than the last. Maya moved through them with practiced grace, a conductor of perception, ensuring every angle, every detail reflected perfection. Floyd lingered near the entrance, observing. His focus wasn't the aesthetic, it was the crowd. Every potential buyer, every financier, every curious observer was assessed, cataloged, and mentally cross-referenced against risk. He intercepted a guest attempting to corner Maya with a vague but suggestive question about the property's history. With a calm nod and a few carefully chosen words, he diffused the situation before it could escalate. Hours passed like a blur. Maya directed the catering, repositioned art, and managed the lighting for maximum impact. Her heels cut into her feet, every step sending pain shooting up her legs, but she pressed on, adrenaline overriding discomfort. Floyd noticed her limping slightly, the stiffness in her shoulders, the subtle wince when she reached for a tray. As the evening drew toward its peak, the crowd thinned, leaving a few lingering investors and the staff quietly cleaning around the edges. Maya sank into a chair for the first time, flexing her sore feet. Floyd, noticing her struggle, approached silently. "Here," he said, kneeling to help remove her shoes. She hesitated, then allowed him, the gesture carrying unspoken trust. "You've been working nonstop," he said softly. "You can't sell a dream if you're running on exhaustion." Maya blinked at him, surprised by the concern that wasn't patronizing, wasn't judgmental. I'm fine," she said, but the admission felt hollow. "You're not," Floyd corrected gently. "And neither is anyone else here. We can't afford mistakes, but we also can't afford for you to burn out." They sat in silence for a moment, the city lights stretching beneath them like an endless grid of opportunity and danger. For the first time, Maya allowed herself to see Floyd not just as a partner or competitor, but as an ally, someone whose vigilance and integrity were as vital as her ambition and vision. The remaining investors trickled out, leaving only a few high-profile clients. Maya and Floyd moved together, clearing broken glasses, repositioning chairs, stacking trays. The penthouse, which had been a stage, now felt like a battlefield they had survived side by side. "You did well tonight," Maya said, her voice quieter than usual. "Better than I expected." Floyd glanced at her, his expression unreadable but approving. "So did you. You orchestrated the whole evening perfectly." But he hesitated, softening. "Don't forget to take care of yourself in the process." Maya smiled faintly, exhausted but feeling a rare sense of partnership. "Noted," she said, but inside, a new determination burned. If they could survive this night, If they could manage the impossible together, then maybe the threats looming ahead, Vicky, the audits, the sabotage, could be navigated too. As they finally stepped back, surveying the now quiet penthouse, Maya felt the weight of the evening sink in. Her feet were raw, her muscles screaming, but the satisfaction of orchestrating a flawless presentation lingered. Floyd's presence, steady and reassuring, reminded her that she wasn't alone in the fight. The penthouse, once just a high-end listing, had become a symbol of ambition, risk, endurance, and the fragile beginnings of trust. And somewhere, beyond the city lights, Vicky was undoubtedly watching, calculating, preparing her next move. The office was silent, the kind of silence that made every creak of the floorboards sound like a warning. Maya sat at her desk, her laptop open, spreadsheets and financial statements spread across the screen like a battlefield map. Floyd leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her work, offering quiet support but refusing to interfere. Maya's mind churned. Vicky's sabotage, the audit, the fabricated bribery allegations, it all pointed to a single conclusion. Vicky had been manipulating deals, laundering money through high-value properties, and using her authority to protect herself while threatening anyone who stood in her way. She took a deep breath, centering herself. "I can't rely on anyone else," she said softly, mostly to herself. "If we want to beat her, we have to know what she's hiding." Floyd's eyes narrowed. "You're talking about digging into her finances?" "Yes," Maya replied firmly. "I need evidence. Paper trails, bank transfers, shell companies, everything. If we're going to counter her, we can't just react. We have to strike strategically." The next days were a blur of covert investigation. Maya used her network, reaching out to contacts in banks, legal offices, and even obscure real estate channels. She cross-referenced property records, tracing shell corporations and hidden accounts. Each discovery was a puzzle piece, an illicit transfer here, an offshore account there, subtle manipulations buried under layers of legitimate transactions. Floyd observed her methodically, occasionally offering insight into contracts or regulatory loopholes. "Check this account," he said one evening, pointing at a transfer in her spreadsheet. "It's linked to a subsidiary we missed before. If you follow it, you might uncover the next layer." Maya nodded, her pulse quickening. The deeper she dug, the clearer the pattern became. Vicky had built a network of hidden transactions across multiple properties, all disguised as legitimate deals, all funneling wealth under her control. The realization was both terrifying and exhilarating. She finally understood the full scope of the system she was up against. Hours turned into nights, nights into early mornings. Maya's fatigue was evident, dark circles under her eyes, her hands trembling from relentless typing, but she pressed on. Every file she opened, every ledger she reviewed, was another step closer to exposing Vicky. Floyd, ever steady, kept her grounded, reminding her to document, to photograph, to safeguard each piece of evidence. One evening, as the city lights glittered below the penthouse, Maya leaned back, rubbing her temples. "I have it," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "Every transaction, every shell company. This is enough to bring her down." Floyd stepped forward, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You did it," he said quietly. "You saw through her system and followed it to the core. And we can use it. Strategically." Maya allowed herself a small, tired smile. For the first time, she felt a measure of control, a sense that the pendulum could swing in their favor. Vicky's power was formidable, but she had overextended, underestimating both Floyd and Maya's resolve. "Tomorrow," Maya said, determination sharpening her tone, "we make the next move. We contact the client directly. We finalize the deal outside of her influence. And then we start something new. Something independent." Floyd nodded, his expression unreadable but approving. "We move carefully, but decisively. No mistakes, no hesitation." For the first time, Maya felt truly aligned with someone, not just as a partner in business, but as an ally in the struggle against corruption and manipulation. Vicky's empire of intimidation had a crack, and they were about to exploit it fully. The penthouse, once a symbol of high-end luxury, now felt like a war room. And Maya, fueled by determination, strategy, and a newfound alliance with Floyd, was ready to turn the tables. The morning air in the city carried a rare clarity, but the penthouse felt charged, almost like a battlefield ready for the final assault. Maya reviewed the compiled evidence on her laptop, double-checking every transaction, every shell company, every connection that linked Vicky to her network of manipulations. Floyd stood nearby, silently observing, making minor annotations on contract drafts, his calmness a steady counterpoint to her tension. "It's time," Maya said finally, closing her laptop. "We reach out to the buyer. Directly. No middlemen, no Vicky, no games." Floyd nodded. "And we make it airtight. Terms, deposits, contingencies. All transparent, but structured so she can't intervene." Maya made the call herself. The Sheikah's representative answered, polite but cautious. She presented the offer clearly, demonstrating both the exclusivity of the deal and the integrity of their process. She subtly referenced the prior disruptions without naming Vicky outright, hinting at the professionalism and reliability of their independent approach. The response was positive, the Sheikh intrigued and reassured. Maya felt a surge of hope, but it was immediately tempered by the sharp sting of reality. Vicky had already caught wind of the move. Within the hour, Maya's phone buzzed with an anonymous tip, a call from Vicky's assistant, thinly veiled threats reminding her that any interference comes with consequences. Maya's pulse quickened, but she refused to falter. She turned to Floyd, who had been reviewing contingency clauses. "She knows," she said. "She'll try to sabotage this last step." Floyd's eyes narrowed. "Then we act faster. Keep her from controlling the narrative." He moved with precise efficiency, organizing documents, preparing digital signatures, and ensuring that the transfer of deposits and contracts could happen remotely, out of Vicky's reach. Hours became a tense blur. Maya maintained direct communication with the buyer, navigating questions, concerns, and last-minute demands. Floyd handled the legal and financial intricacies, his presence a protective shield against potential traps. Every message, every signed page, every verification was a small victory against Vicky's looming influence. Then came the critical moment, the final contract signature. Vicky's shadow seemed to stretch across the city itself. Maya felt the weight of anticipation in her chest as the Sheikah's representative confirmed readiness to finalize the deal. Floyd adjusted his tie, glanced at Maya, and nodded, a silent acknowledgement that this was their moment. Maya executed the digital transfer of the contract and deposit, the confirmation ping echoing in the penthouse. The Sheikah's representative confirmed receipt and full agreement, effectively sealing the deal. Maya exhaled, a mixture of relief, triumph, and exhaustion. Floyd allowed himself a small, approving smile. "We did it," he said. "Without her, without shortcuts, without compromise." Maya's gaze drifted to the city skyline, lights reflecting like scattered jewels. "It's done," she whispered. "She can't touch it now." But they both knew the battle wasn't over, not entirely. Vicky would recover. She would fight back. She would attempt to reclaim control. Yet in this moment, Maya and Floyd had outmaneuvered her. They had achieved a victory through strategy, integrity, and partnership. As they stood side by side in the quiet penthouse, the city below them sparkling with life and opportunity, Maya realized something profound. This wasn't just a sale. It was the culmination of skill, resilience, and courage. And for the first time, she understood that working alongside someone she could trust, someone whose values matched action, made even the most formidable obstacle navigable. The penthouse, which had once been a symbol of a simple high-end listing, had become a monument to their combined perseverance. And as the evening lights reflected on the marble floors, Maya and Floyd silently acknowledged the truth they had both discovered. Together, they were unstoppable.